It's really important to be able to manage your thoughts and your mindset. And the reason it's really important, I'll try to explain it here. Effectively, there's four parts to our brains. There's the primitive part, which takes care of all the sort of automatic stuff like, your blood circulating and your breathing and your heart pumping away, etc. You've then got what's called the mammalian brain, which is the same as most of the sort of higher animal kingdom. But you've then got the human brain, the neocortex, and there's two parts to that, as I'm sure you're probably aware, the left part and the right part. The important thing to know is that in the mammalian brain, that's all about survival. So that deals with flight and fear. And it also means that you're thinking of the present and survival. You're in survival mode when you're using this part of your brain. Whereas the human brain up here, that's all about wisdom and knowledge, but also about vision and the future. And so it's up here that you get the concept of time and the future. So when it comes to reacting to any sort of stimulus or setback, you don't want to slip into the mammalian brain thinking patterns here, which basically mean that you're governed by fear, and you're governed by emotions, and you're governed by fight and flight. What you want to be able to do is to be able to switch from here to up here, where you can rationalize what's happening, you can think of alternative scenarios, you can make plans, you can use the wisdom and knowledge you've got in order to actually manage your way through the situation. So then the question is, how do you do that? Now, what tends to happen is that in our brains, we develop what are called neural pathways. So if we react in a certain way to a certain stimulus or setback, then if we do that a few times, we develop what are called mental habits, these neural pathways. And basically several things happen in there, but effectively what it means is that when the same stimulus occurs, it's easier to move along that neural pathway that we've moved along previously, which could take us into this mammalian part of the brain, which is all about fight and flight and negative emotions. And unless you've got some way of counteracting that, you'll end up there. Whereas really, you want to end up here in the wisdom part and the forward planning part of your brain, the human, the neocortex area. So then you say, well, how can you do that? And there are several ways that work. So the whole idea of meditation, for example, is to enable you to engage with your higher brain here, and it works. It's the same in NLP. You have what are called anchors. So instead of resorting to this mammalian part of your brain, if you apply a certain anchor, it will make you move to using up here, and it will again trigger off the sorts of behaviors that you want rather than the sorts of behavior here that you don't really want. And then another way of doing it is through mindfulness. So anything where you concentrate on the now and the moment means that you calm your brain, if you like, and you enable yourself to get away from the fears and the negative emotions and engage the wisdom part of your brain. And then there's another way, which is similar to all of those, but it's something that you can do anywhere and at any time. And it's something that was covered by someone called Shirzad Chamine in his best-selling book, Positive Intelligence. And he calls these PQ reps. And they're a bit like all of these things here, but they're really easy to master. And they enable you at the flick of a switch in 10 seconds or less to go into the human wisdom part of the brain rather than the mammalian negative emotions part of the brain. And what you do is by applying these things and learning the techniques, you develop neural pathways, which then will mean that when something unfortunate happens, instead of you sliding down a neural pathway to take you here, it means you go up into this wise part of the brain, which is where you want to be. So it's a really interesting area. But if you ever want to find out more about it and have a conversation, more than happy to do that. And if you're interested in knowing how mixing with other like-minded, positive-minded people could help you take your business forward, because you hold each other accountable, you help each other set ambitious goals, you give each other ideas and advice, I suppose, then have a look at businessroundtableuk.co.uk, which explains how the idea of an advisory board or an alternative board or a mastermind group, how it can actually work. And that's something that Napoleon Hill, in his best-selling book, Think and Grow Rich, describes as one of the key steps to riches, because it's really important to help everyone, become more successful. So I hope you found that interesting. It's a fascinating area, but basically, if you know what to do, you can habitually go into the forward thinking wisdom part of your brain rather than wrapped up in the heat and anger and negative emotions of the present part of your brain here. And really, that's where you want to go to achieve your goals and to make plans and to actually be successful, rather than here, which is where you get stuck in, where you don't want to be stuck, really. Hope you found that interesting. Thanks very much for watching.